Okay, we're live. All right. Apologies, we're working with some power outage issues. And good evening and welcome to the September 5th Historic Preservation Commission meeting. We'll call the meeting to order. And could you do the roll, please?
Casey Sampson,
Present.
Scott Allen,
Present.
Andrew Anderson,
Present.
Rest are excused. So we do have a quorum to conduct business. We don't have any old business, so I think the only item on our new business is 322 South Lebanon Street, and we'll hear from Derek first.
Thank you, Casey. Commission, Casey and I did discuss this earlier today. I just want to make you aware of it, that the applicant was going to have to drive 2 hours to get here tonight. So we made the determination that it's a pretty straightforward application, and we could spare him the pain and suffering of a 4-hour round trip to come to this meeting. So I will present to you the staff report. I will answer any questions that you might have, and I think we should be able to get through this pretty efficiently tonight. This is sort of a, this was one of the hardest applications for me to digest because we just don't have anything in our guidelines that really address something like this. So I do apologize for the lengthy staff report. And I'm not going to go over it word for word tonight because there's a lot of stuff that came out of our Unified Development Ordinance that kind of helps regulate some of this kind of stuff. And I don't want to get into the minutia of all that. We'll briefly talk about it. And if you have any direct questions, we'll deal with that. So tonight, the applicant is KAHL LLC, which is Keith, probably going to butcher this last name, Hoogland is the way I'm going to pronounce it. The address is 322 South Lebanon Street. The property is zoned central business, and this property has not been before the Historic Preservation Commission prior. The building is classification is non-contributing, which is a building less than 50 years old and is incompatible with its historic surroundings, or a building which is over 40 years old that has been altered in such a way that it has lost its historic character. In this case, the building is much less than 50 years old. In fact, it was built in 2000. This building is not included in the National Register of Historic Places, Lebanon Courthouse Historic District. Tonight, the action requested is a monument sign. And as mentioned, monument signs are not defined anywhere in our guidelines. And in fact, they're not really defined in many of the publications that are out there and available for reference. So that is the reason for the kind of lengthy staff report. The applicant is seeking approval to install a monument sign in place of the pole sign that was deemed non-conforming with the underlying zoning requirements, and therefore they were forced to take that pole sign down and do something different. So that's why we're here tonight discussing a monument sign. The guidelines for the Lebanon District do not address monument signs, as mentioned. In addition, the National Park Service preservation brief for signs does not reference monument signs as well. So I dove into, just kind of a quick Google search and tried to find something that was relative to this conversation, and found something in Salt Lake City, Utah that made the most sense to me. So that's where all this came from. And the guidelines that made the most sense to me for monument signs in a non-contributing building were three highlights. Signs must be compatible with the architecture of the building to which they are associated. Number one. Number two is lighting of monument signs is permitted, providing that the lighting is shielded and directed only towards the sign. And number three, which relates to number two, is internally illuminated monument signs should be avoided. So those were the criteria that I kind of provided the applicant to try to design a sign within. The primary structure was built in the year 2000 with a mixture of a red block, a red metal siding, and a green metal roof. So essentially this building is a modern construction, metal studs clad in a couple different facade materials that you would have seen at the time. In fact, if anybody has seen a family video building, they almost look identical to this one. So the applicant has submitted a sign design that closely matches the color palette and materials found on the building. And the design does meet the underlining zoning requirements, as I mentioned earlier. So that the UDO guidelines have to do with height, sign face, above grade, so forth and so on, spacing between other monument signs, and the maximum sign area of 45 square feet, which this sign does meet all the underlying UDO requirements. The proposed sign utilizes the existing base for the old pole sign, which essentially the way this is going to be constructed is the pole that they have cut off. If you've driven by and seen, they have removed the old pole sign, but the new sign will essentially attach to what's left of the old pole sign, and that will be its structural support. The sign face is bordered on the bottom and top with green aluminum to match the green metal roof siding. And I did confirm that with the applicant today. Casey, you had that question about some of the language that was found in the sign by design submittal. And it's essentially what you thought. It was, not a representation on the digital print that they proposed, but they are matching the green that is found on the building. The changeable sign faces, there's three tenant spaces in this building currently, are a white Lexan, Lexan. The lighting of the sign will be external upward shining. The lighting will be required to meet the UDO requirements, which essentially requires the lighting to be designed in such a way that is not visible from the adjacent public rights right of way or residential properties. So in this case, we're looking at the public rights of way. So at the time of the submittal, the applicant was still trying to find the exact sign design, or I'm sorry, the lighting design, but they are aware that at the minimum, they have to meet the requirements in the UDO, which is a shielded sign directed onto the sign face and the bulbs not visible from the public right of way. So staff recommendation is the sign proposed for this building is an appropriate style sign for the age and design of the structure that it is supporting. The sign meets the requirements of the Lebanon UDO, and the sign proposed is appropriate for the site. Again, sorry to repeat myself. So staff recommendation is to approve the COA as submitted. And I would show you all the pretty pictures, but we have blank screens tonight. So sorry about that, people watching.
All right, thank you, sir. Any questions for Derek?
No.
All right. Hearing. I have no questions. As the only question I had prior to the meeting was that clarification he clarified. There could be a color difference, but that was just in the digital representation. So I have no questions. I'll make a motion to approve the COA as submitted.
Second it.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right. Thank you. Any staff reports?
No staff reports.
All right. Last thing is I jumped the gun and forgot to approve the minutes. I think we were all here. So we had a chance to look at the minutes. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Second it.
Motion and a second. Any discussion, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. I think that's all we have for this evening. We'll see you in October. Motion to adjourn. We're going to get that. We're going to, not having this check sheet in front of me is a struggle. Motion to adjourn.
Second that.
And a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And we are adjourned. Thank you.